Hi, so welcome back for another Real Auto Talk right here at Real Auto Reports with me, Jonathan McGrew. Today, I wanted to talk about, in this Real Auto Talk segment, 7-passenger and 8-passenger seating vehicles. Because, as we sit here in our current review vehicle that we're doing our review on, the 2015 Lexus GX460, it came to mind to me that there are a lot of vehicles out there today that have 7-passenger or more capacity. And the question I always have is, how usable are these 7-passenger plus vehicles? Because honestly, I haven't found one that I appreciate sitting in that third row, if you will. So that's what we're talking about when we talk about 7-passenger seating. That's that third row, not the second row where everybody's all comfy and happy and hunky-dory. No, it's more like in a minivan when you are forced into the very back. So I guess that's a good place to start. We're talking about SUVs really here, but minivans for the longest time have had the most capacity of easy to drive vehicles. However, they lack in the ability for off-road and for clearance in the inclement weather. You've been able to get an all-wheel drive minivan for a long time. However, that doesn't mean that A, you want to drive a minivan, or B, that is the vehicle that is best for what you're trying to do. So we started to see over the last really decade or so, vehicles coming out more and more with 7-passenger seat configurations in the crossover CUV and the sport utility SUV markets. Now, this 2015 Lexus GX460 fits squarely in the luxury, mid-size to full-size SUV category. It has a full 4-wheel drive transfer case and comes in right about $65,000. It, of course, has all the leather and navigation, and we'll have our review on it here at Real Auto Reports down the road. But what I want to talk about is the 7-seat capacity. In this vehicle, you have a third row. It's actually a power folding third row, and it allows you to add 2 more passengers. Now, we try to test everything in detailed fashion here at Real Auto Reports. And one of the things that we noticed about the 7-seat capacity of this vehicle and others is how really hard to use many of them are. So before we go into too much detail on that, what I want to talk about is what vehicles could you be looking at if you need 5+ capacity. So you need more than 5 seats. Well, most SUVs today that are mid-size will have a third row option. It may not come standard and you may have to pay extra for it. So you definitely want to check that out. One of the vehicles that does have this as a standard feature for 7-passenger seating is the Mitsubishi Outlander. And now we're actually going to be posting our 2015 review of that down the road here in the new year. But it is a vehicle you could look at for that 7-passenger standard configuration. Another vehicle that we've seen recently that actually seats 8 is the Highlander, the 2014, 15, and so on. Highlander from Toyota is going to have that third row capability as well. Of course, your Pathfinder, you are going to see the third row option. You can see it in luxury vehicles like this GX460 from Lexus, of course, all the way up to the LX470, which is more based on the Toyota Land Cruiser. And of course, the Toyota 4Runner now has a 7-seat option, which is pretty remarkable all in all. And the Dodge Durango has the extra capacity with the third row as well. Where you're not going to see that third row capacity as often as in some of the smaller mid-size crossovers like the Outlander Sport from Mitsubishi or the Kia Rio, or not Rio, but the Kia Sportage. But up in the Kia, the higher end Kia and in the Hyundai Santa Fe, you're going to see that 7-seat capacity. And it's going to depend on the vehicle whether or not you have 7 or 8. And what really drives that is the type of suspension and body setup they have on the vehicle. The Highlander from the previous generation to the new generation for this current model year has a total redesigned suspension and body, and it allowed them to move the suspension outboard and create a wider area for the rear seat, allowing you to sit 3 across. So 3 across in the middle row and 3 across in the full third row all the way in the back. Now that's the general SUV landscape, unless you're looking at something like a Suburban, a Cadillac Escalade with the extended wheelbase, or something like an Expedition with, again, the third row option. Some of these vehicles are going to have a lot more room. One of the vehicles that I still think had some of the best rear third row room was the Ford Excursion. We had one back in 2001, and it was excellent for transporting people when you had 8 passengers. Other vehicles that can take that many passengers are going to be something like a 15-passenger van. Of course, if you have to go that way, you can get all-wheel drive 15-passenger vans. The Ford well, anyway, you know what I was trying to say. The Ford Ecoline, or Econoline, as I should be saying. So the Econoline and the Chevrolet and GMC varieties in their full-size van. You have a lot of options. Well, not a lot, but you have a few options there. And of course, then you also have the Dodge Sprinters and things like that that are out on the market. There are some from Mercedes and some of the foreign manufacturers that we don't see as much here in the States as well. But they're not going to be as stylish and functional as the SUVs, and the SUV market really has blown up. Now, that's not to say I don't like a good customized van, because, well, those who are familiar with me personally and with Real Auto Reports might know, and have seen a previous Real Auto Talk might know, that we have a 84 customized Chevrolet van. And of course, you can seat up to 7 or 8 in that, depending on the seating configuration as well. So customized vans are an option if you need to carry a lot of people, but they aren't going to carry as many as a 15-passenger plus van. So some things to consider. But back to the SUV and the CUV market, which is where we focus because it is so hot right now, is really the rear seats. Some things to look for, like the Infiniti QX60 that we recently looked at. It has a third row option. That was the JX35 if you're trying to keep score in the Infiniti renamings. That Infiniti had a third row. It had decent room, and you could actually position it so I could sit in the front seat, the middle seat, and the rear seat. And that's a 7-passenger configuration as well. Of course, the Mercedes GL is going to be a lot larger vehicle, and the Infiniti QX80 is going to be good size. But in all of these vehicles, no matter which one you have with a third row, you are going to have limited cargo capacity unless you are driving something like a long wheelbase Suburban or an extended wheelbase Escalade. Really the same vehicle, just one the higher end from the other. Unless you're driving one of those vehicles, to get that 8-passenger seating configuration is going to be really difficult with cargo room that is usable, unless you're using a rooftop cargo container. But some are going to be easier to get in and out of than others. I actually took the Durango with a bunch of people on a couple-hour trip up and back, and it was actually fairly easy to get in and out of, but it wasn't an 8-passenger. To be honest, it was just barely a 7-passenger because it had the captain's chairs. So there's a bunch of things you want to look at there. In the Highlander, in the previous generation, you could also get captain's chairs, which would limit your seating down to really 6. So these are the considerations when we talk about a third row you want to think about. How often are you going to use it? That's number one. When you look at a third row in the vehicle that you're buying, are you going to use that third row all the time? That is going to sway you to the different vehicles and their sizes. You might want to look at larger vehicles like the Pathfinder, the QX80, if you're going luxury, the Suburban in the full size, not the shorter wheelbase in the Tahoe. You're going to want to look at those vehicles if you use that third row all the time and you have a big family. Number two, if you don't use it and you are interested in usability, though, you want to look for one that has that power folding third row so it's easy to fold it up and down. Number 3, decide whether you're buying a luxury vehicle and you just need that essence of getting the third row, or whether you are looking for really a family hauler and you need that third row in a pinch as well. It's going to change whether you have leather seating surfaces or cloth. It's going to determine whether you're in a $30,000 price range or a $60,000 price range like this GX460 here from Lexus. So all of that said, make sure that you consider those 3 factors. How often are you going to use the third row, and what kind of vehicle, what kind of vehicle are you looking for, and what kind of price range? You know what I mean? These are all the things that you want to talk about. So again, make sure you know how often you're going to use it. Do you want the convenience of power? And what kind of vehicle are you looking for in terms of price range and features and quality? Because it's going to change your options in that third row and the kind of driving characteristics of that vehicle in and of itself. Now, personally, I think the third rows are most often used in a pinch in most of the mid-size to full-size SUVs. It's really the big Suburbans and the Escalade Extended that you can really use them on a regular basis. That's just my opinion because I'm 6 foot. If you have different sized children and or people in your family in terms of heights, you might get along better. But here's the best advice I can give you when it comes to looking at a 7-passenger seated SUV or greater. Make sure you take people with you on the test drive of some people that are tall, some people that are normal in your life that you're going to be hauling around, and take the time to test it. Take the time to get them in and out. Take the time to drive with multiple people in the vehicle at the dealer. It's going to seem like a hassle, but it's going to serve you in the long run if you know before you purchase that you can use that third row or that 7-passenger or more capacity in the vehicle that you're purchasing. Remember, vehicles are one of the most expensive purchases we make besides houses, and they also depreciate the fastest, unlike a lot of houses, hopefully anyway. So you want to make sure you're making the right decision so you don't have to switch out of your vehicle sooner than you anticipated. Well, that's our Real Auto Talk for today on third rows and 7+ passenger seating. I'm Jonathan McGrew right here at Real Auto Ranch for Real Auto Reports, and we will see you hopefully down the road. Make sure you tune in soon for more Real Auto Talks.